Welcome to this episode of Bender's Briefings. Today we'll talk to Joy Jones about the Bob Sykes Bridge Rehabilitation Project. We'll look at some of the activities that have taken place on Pensacola Beach during the shutdown that improved some of the amenities, including the trolley stops and the parking lots. We'll also look at some of the projects they're in the process of completing with regard to the tennis court and the inline skating hockey area. We've had a number of fires in the area, but our fire department has responded very well. And so look at some of those responses, talk to the firefighters that actually responded to the fire off Olive Road. And then also look at the recycling facility off Johnson and some of the plans that we have to improve this while still allowing our community to utilize and recycle their material. So please join me for this episode of Bender's Briefings. I'm joined by our county engineer, Joy Jones, who's helping oversee the Bob Sykes Bridge Rehabilitation Project. For those of you that don't know, the bridge was originally built in 1974 with a 50-year lifespan, which we are coming up on. And so the county decided that they wanted to spend a little bit of money on rehabbing the bridge as opposed to building a new one at this time. That was decided a few years ago, and we're finally gotten to the rehabilitation portion of that project. What was originally a little over $4 million is, once we got the bids in on the construction costs and everything, came into a little over $5.5 million. And so that work is currently being done, and we'll go through most of the summer. But wanted to let Joy talk about what's going into the project, what it means in terms of extending the life of the bridge, and then we'll also talk about how it may impact you going out to the beach. But to give you a little bit of a hint, it won't be much right now. So, Joy, welcome. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
So let's talk a little bit about the bridge itself. Mm-hmm. Of course, we're familiar with some of the things that are going on throughout the county as it relates to bridges. But this is a bridge that the county asked for from the state. That was a toll bridge. They wanted the revenue from the bridge, which means that now we have to maintain it and keep it up and eventually rebuild it when we need to. So let's talk about just the shape that the bridge is in right now and what we're doing to improve it.
Okay. Like you said, it was built in 1974. It had a 50-year life, so that puts it to 2024. And that is fast approaching, so we wanted to make sure that we could do a rehab if that was the right thing to do instead of a replacement at this time, which I believe it is because it can add 12 years of life. The design, that was the scope of work for design, is to make sure that they designed everything so that it would extend it those 12 years. And I'll speak to that a little bit later about what that means and what they've done.
And that's a common practice with bridges of extending the life. Of course, being a concrete bridge, we have a little bit, I don't want to say more flexibility because concrete's really rigid, but it's a better opportunity for us to do that in this case, I believe. Yeah.
It is. What you're really looking at here is the corrosion as far as the fender system, which is around the main channel. And one feature that we've put into that is a corrosion resistance system. So while we're doing this rehab, and it's a passive system, so you put aluminum anodes up next to the metal, and it's similar to a boat. If you have a boat, you see the little anodes that you connect on the back of your motor. Those corrode first instead of the base metal parts of your motor. So that's been done, and that will help with that 12-year life. And the way they calculated that was how much and how many pounds of anode they needed to put into it.
Good to know. And so they've been working on this now, I think, for a few months. Mm-hmm. They started earlier in the spring. It was just around spring break time when they started on the north side. But we had long discussions about that. We wanted to try to get this work done quickly, which is why we started doing it during the day. But as we transitioned to the south side for people coming onto the beach, we adjusted our work schedule ultimately moving it to nighttime. And then when the COVID-19 hit, we allowed them to go back to the daytime. Again, they can work a little bit quicker, a little bit safer conditions, and wanted to try to get that out of the way while the beach traffic wasn't there. And so they've mostly finished the top deck work. You said there may be some later on in the year, but most drivers should not be impacted by the bridge work currently going on during the summertime.
That's right.
And then let's talk a little bit about the time frame to finish the project. So as we said, the top deck work is mostly complete, but the project will be going on throughout the summer.
It will. The contract is through December 2020, so that's what we've given them as far as time. The latest schedule that we received from them was taking it through August. So right now, as long as weather holds and everything, they should be finished before December.
And I think, as we said, weather also plays an important part in that 12-year extension.
Right.
A number of factors go into that, including weather. Of course, storms can have an impact on that. So if we can continue to see the run of storms that we haven't seen in our area, that would maybe even improve that lifespan a little bit. But of course, that's one reason why after every major storm, those bridges get inspected to make sure that they're still suitable for drivers. We're working on a lot of things around this area. And so the bridge rehabilitation project is just a small part of that. Anything else you'd like to add about the bridge rehabilitation work currently going on?
Just, a lot of the work that's being done is the concrete work, where you have spalling, where the concrete has fallen off or there's cracks, and they'll epoxy that and seal it up. Also inside you have the reinforcing steel, so if it gets exposed, this rehab is also to make sure that we replace all that, cut it back, reform, re-pour to protect everything. And that is on the deck work. Underneath, on each approach and end piece, they're doing abutment work. They're replacing all the bolts and everything through the fender system as well. Support piles that are below the water line, they said those are in very good shape. So everything above that, as far as concrete and rebar, they are addressing that.
And I thought this was really neat. When they had to replace the pads, they actually lifted it up on one side to replace those. What wall cars were still going on the road. So can you just talk about that process a little bit for someone who may not know? I mean, to lift the entire side of a bridge up to pull something out and put something back in, I thought was very fascinating.
Well, it's hydraulics, and I wish I had gotten out there and seen it, but our inspector was definitely impressed with how it was done, and it lifts everything at the same time so you don't even know. And it's just a minor height that they're raising it so that they can put in the bearing pads and everything that need to be replaced.
Well, great. Well, I hope you all have enjoyed this segment, learning a little bit about the Bob Sykes Bridge Rehabilitation Project and how it extends the life of the bridge. And we'll be going on to our next segment now. Thank you so much. Lieutenant Polt, Firefighter Vera, Firefighter Johnson, and we are at the Ferry Pass Fire Station. During the last few weeks, we have had a few structure fires in District 4, and I want to say I'm very pleased, and I think you all should be too, of the response of our fire department. We had someone call in and ask about our response of a structure fire that was off Olive Road a few weeks ago, and wanted to ask about it. And so I talked with our fire chief. I looked at the fire report, and one of the things that we can see is what time the call came in, when the units were dispatched, what time they were en route, and then finally what time they arrived on scene. And I have to commend these guys that from the time that the call was placed out to the time they were en route was 12 seconds. And this is probably one of the hardest working fire stations in Escambia County. They get a lot of calls and from everything from car accidents to fires. And so, of course, I wanted to let the people of Ferry Pass see who's here protecting them, and want to thank them for their service and also for that response. I know that
I've talked to the individuals that have either called 911 during some of these fires, and I understand that when there's an emergency like that going on, seconds seem like minutes and minutes seem like hours, and our response is never quick enough. But I don't know how we could get any better than 12 seconds. And again, even the fires that occurred on Pensacola Beach in the middle of the night, those crews were rolling within 3.5 minutes at both times. And again, that's the type of service that we want. So I'm glad that everyone has been able to combat those fires safely and not had more damage. But for those that live in Ferry Pass, these are the guys that are protecting you, and they've done a great job during these times. So, Lieutenant, thank you so much. If you'd like to say anything about your crew and about your service with the fire department, we'd love to hear that.
I'd like to say it was truly a crew effort that night, just not with my crew here, but the other crews responding with us. It was a played out scene. Everything was textbook. We got fire under control in a matter of several minutes. I want to say it was good job by my crew and the rest of the guys coming in.
If I remember correctly, I think you all were on scene for about 5 minutes before the second truck arrived, and we had, I think, 4 more trucks or 3 more engines and a ladder arrive, all within about a 3-minute period. I think 3 of those apparatuses arrived within the same minute. So a great response by all of our Escambia County Fire Rescue crews that evening, and as you said, you were able to quickly get it under control and limit the damage. So,
yes, sir.
How'd you guys enjoy that experience or being able to respond? Or
it's what we're here for. You know, we come every day, you know, ready to basically, you know, do our job, and getting a fire, it's exciting, you know, because we're doing our job, but we're also protecting our community. And our fire engineer here, he did a great job with pumping, and my lieutenant giving us the instructions and everything else to put out the fire. I think we did a great job, especially having a 3-man company.
Yeah, good. Firefighter Johnson, anything you'd like to add?
Went great's what we train for every day. Live, breathe, eat it. That's what we
Good.
do.
And we actually had our 4th man assigned to us that day. Our 4th man is usually the first one that floats. There's somebody taking off that day, and just so happened that day we had our 4th guy. And it really makes a big difference on a fire attack.
Yeah.
We're able to do our 2 in, 2 out rule. If we had to go and actually fight the fire or search for victims, we can meet our 2 in, 2 out rule. But with being 4, we're really starting an offensive attack. It was able to allow me to do more attack. We had an exposure starting to light off. Got 1 guy on exposure, 1 guy fire attack. So it actually worked out well that day having an extra man on the truck.
Good. Well, again, I want to thank you all for what you do, just not on April 15th, the day of that fire, but every day out here, and really being the ones that serve the citizens. And I hope everyone in Ferry Pass feels confident of the job that they do every day. Hi, this is Commissioner Bender. I'm out at the beach right now. Came out with the Public Works, Parks and Rec staff to look at some of the issues that we had been brought to our attention at the tennis courts and the roller rink hockey area here with the basketball courts. And I want to thank them for coming out and looking at this issue with me. Also appreciate the citizens bringing it to our attention. We are constantly out in the district, but without someone bringing it forward, sometimes we do miss something. So by you bringing it to our attention, we're able to address it. I want to commend our public works staff for addressing it quickly, and then that led to another issue which we've also addressed, and so we are working on patching some of these issues and look forward to having everything fully operational here for the summer. Welcome back. Now we're at the recycling containers here off of Johnson Avenue at the Ferry Pass Fire Department. This is another area where we've had some citizens contact us. It's something that we've been working on for a while. We're going to start installing some more signage, allowing people, letting people know what's allowed in the recycling containers, because as we've seen with the city of Pensacola, the real issue is contamination of recyclables. So we're going to make sure there's cleaner signs about what is recyclable. We're also going to install some security cameras to try to prevent people in hopes that they stop dumping here. That's a big issue. we constantly are checking this area and know how the dumpsters are overflowing and that there's trash and debris along the side. So we are increasing the number of times that we're coming out here to pick up the containers. Hopefully that's part of it, and pick up around it. And make this area look nice. It is part of the Ferry Pass neighborhood, and we do want to take pride in it. Plus, it's on our property, so we need to take care of that as well. And look forward to having people follow what we're asking them to do, so that one, the material can be recycled and that it doesn't have to go to the landfill, and then two, to of course keep this area looking nice. So again, I appreciate the people contacting the office with their concerns, and we are working through this and trying to improve what we have here.
Thank you for joining me in this episode of Bender's Briefings. I hope you've enjoyed our behind the scenes look like we usually getting to see some of the staff that's always working hard for the citizens of Escambia County.